Live again. Okay, everybody, apologies for that one. Having a few challenges with the stream, but that's how we roll. That's show business. The show must go on. So as I was saying before, so SpeakuP Monday was born out of a conversation between myself and a good old friend called Morton, a Norwegian, a crazy Norwegian, and it was designed, right, to give other speakers or other people a platform to share inspiration. So Monday night, I'm not sure if you're aware, but Monday is the largest or the strongest day where people commit suicide, right? So part of this is about creating a positive dent in the universe. So we've done 63, or we're about to number 63 positive dents in the universe. And the more we do, the more positive messages explode around us. And it can be one conversation that saves the life of one person, right? It only takes one conversation. And many of these conversations, right, that we're having creates and expands upon, people inspiring people and stories that we have to share that perhaps we don't even know it yet, but someone else may be in a similar situation to where we were. And if they hear those words that they can do it, that we can get over it, that things can change, right? Then that's enough for them to get through that time onto the other side and into being successful in their own life in whichever endeavor they choose to be. So today, to make another dent in the universe, we have the beautiful Stephanie Woollard from Sydney, a place where I spent many years, like 25 years. Oh, and I love Sydney. So now, Stephanie, so let's turn it over to you. Now, if you wouldn't mind just perhaps spending a couple of minutes just explaining, what makes you tick, what kind of person are you, and why do you think that is? So look, just in case a few people missed that, because that's an incredible story, can you pick up again?
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
Thank you.
Sure. So, okay, so I'll just recap on, so what I do today started when I went on a trip to Nepal when I was 19. It was a volunteering trip, and I went to Nepal for 3 months and lived in different communities. And there was one day when the group had left and I stayed on for a couple of weeks, and I was walking down one of the dusty back alleyways of Kathmandu, and I saw a disabled woman who was struggling to carry 2 heavy bags, and she turned into a tiny tin shed, and I poked my head around the door that she disappeared into and saw 7 physically disabled women who were living in this dirty, freezing cold corrugated iron tin shed. And when I inquired about their stories and what they were doing there, Sangeeta, who was the woman who had gathered them together, told me that because they were physically disabled, they were kind of outcasts in their society and heavily stigmatized. And people actually believed that it was bad luck to associate with a disabled person. So they were literally, embodying this belief, and they were, embarrassed about themselves and the way that they looked, and they were living in this tin shed with very little basic needs.
Wow, what an incredible story. And I mean, but what was it within you, right? Because you mentioned that, you grew up at home, you had a really beautiful upbringing from what it sounds like, right? Mum and dad and the whole Melbourne situation. And then, so now you find yourselves there. Now, many people go to Kathmandu and will see that. So what was it that made you stop and actually take it maybe not just one, not just two, but probably 3 or 4 or 5 steps further than anyone that I know? Like what was it what was triggered within you at a deeper level? Can you connect to that?
Sure. I think it was, I see that everyone has huge potential within them, and that kind of burning passion, that light, that energy, that life force, everyone has that in them. And I saw that in the women. I love seeing people in terms of their potential, and I saw that in the women who were in the tin shed. They were making candles out of these ancient looking stainless steel candle makers, where they were, they had the hot wax over the fire, and they were pouring the hot wax into these candle makers with the wicks. And I actually thought that was very enterprising, because at the time there was 10 hours electricity cuts in Nepal, so every shop needed to buy these candles. But I revisited that tin shed every day for the next kind of week or two, and I saw the women as I was on the way to the tin shed walking around. They used to take it in turns to sell the candles, and they wouldn't be able to sell any because of their physical appearance. So I think what really ignited that, me to act was society, because of a belief that had somewhere along the line been made up, was limiting the potential that these women had as humans to contribute on this planet. And that made me feel really sad, that humans could kind of do that to each other and not honour the incredible potential in each other in that way, just because of their physical appearance. So I saw lots of potential in the women, and I was kind of thinking, what can I do as one person to help them in this situation? And I actually remember walking to the nearest internet cafe after meeting the women for the first time and telling my mum, calling home back here in Melbourne and saying, Mum, I've got about $200 and, a week or two left in Nepal. Do you think I can make a difference? These women are living in the tin shed. They've got no money. They don't even have enough money to have like basic food every day. Do you think I can make a difference? And Mum said, go for it. We'll support you, and you'll be able to make some kind of a difference.
Wow.
So that's the encouragement, the only encouragement I needed at that time to go back and think, okay, what can we do?
Wow. In history, when I was 12 years of age, we studied this thing called the 100 Years' War. It was the 100 Years' War, which was going along in the Middle East. And a kid in the back of the classroom put his hand up, said, Miss, yep, 100 Years' War, yeah. It can't be the same people fighting, can it? And like this went right in my head. I never understood it. I never understood at that time anyway, the connection between it's what we pass on, it's what we pass down to our kids during those formative years that creates them that formidable character. And then the RAS, the reticular activating system, does the rest, because it brings in all the images and filters the view, our worldview, our unconscious bias, and we continue along the same road. So then, having said that, what your parents did for you, I'm blown away. I mean, that is such a beautiful thing to instill in a child, to look at life like that. That's beautiful. Wow. So thank you for blessing us with that. Now, the next question which comes up for me is like what is, and it's the first thing which comes in your mind, right? So what is the worst thing you've ever seen?
The first thing that came to mind was I remember, when we were building the organisation, so I had $200 and that paid for trainers. So the women were trained in skills, and they started making products, and that was the way that I saw would be the most sustainable to help them. So I was bringing products back to Australia, selling them, fundraising, and sending the money back to at least build them a proper place to live. So we, initially we paid some money to women who were super poor, whose kids weren't going to school, just so their kids could go to school. But that actually created some unrest between the women who had a bit more money, who were earning from making things and had the money to pay for schooling, and those that didn't. So then we realized it had to be equal amongst all of them. So we kind of made this policy that we wouldn't anymore give things for free. Like, we'd really equip the women to be earning really good money so they could cover all their basic needs. And just when we decided that there was an old man who knocked on the door of our centre, the kind of tin gate, and he came in and he was kind of asking for asking for us to help him. And he had now I don't know the proper terminology or the words for this, but he had basically a really makeshift job done on his stomach. He had this tube, like a plastic tube, coming out of his stomach, and I think it's called like a catheter, or the bags that they have. I really am not familiar with this, but it's just the visual that came to mind. It was like he was asking if we could help him buy the proper bags that he needed to kind of catch the food that came out of this pipe, because he was, he probably didn't have a long time to live. And it was just desperate to see the makeshift plastic tube coming out, and that literally like a plastic bag that they only had a certain number of that came to Nepal. So a lot of desperate situations like that, you know, people that were coming to, once they heard what we were doing, coming to ask for help. And, you know, obviously you want to help them all. And when you see things like that, you know, it doesn't even cross your mind whether to help or not. But that sort of thing that you just, you know, it's so foreign to us here in countries like Australia, that where we have, you know, so many facilities to enable us to live extraordinary lives.
And like, so when was the last time that you were really conflicted about what you're doing or the person that you're becoming?
Oh, wow, interesting question. Conflicted. So I did a master's in Sweden in peace and conflict research, and I probably got to a stage 7 years after creating 7 Women. It was up and running. We had an international manufacturing fair trade product business, and they were exporting, and we developed a cooking school by that stage. So we're getting a lot of tourists doing the cooking classes, and it was becoming sustainable. And I thought, how do I make, you know, what do I do in future to make even more of a difference? Because this is looking like it's becoming sustainable. Maybe I would, you know, maybe I should work in policy, or how do I make a bigger impact on the world? So a mentor of mine suggested that I go and do a master's, you know, while I'm still young-ish, and to get that kind of under my belt, because that would open up a lot of job opportunities in future. So I took that advice, I took it as a sign, and I went to Sweden for 2 years to study peace and conflict research. And I became quite disillusioned with the world. I think, you know, I might have been quite naive before I went there, thinking that the reason why the world is in the state that it is because people just haven't found the solutions, and I wanted to be part of the solution. So when I was studying it and doing my own research on the side, it was like, oh my goodness, you mean to tell me that people can make a decision overnight and influence millions and millions of lives? So I'd been working, you know, on the grassroots in Nepal for this many years, and it was quite hard to kind of learn about, you know, get a real insight into how politics works. But still, you know, with all that study, it was like I still didn't feel like you could understand. It was very like smoke and mirrors. It's like, but how does it actually work? So I got back to Australia after that 2 years, and I was quite disillusioned just by, you know, I was like, it doesn't make sense that the world is like this. Like there's something, what else is there? It doesn't make sense. So I was kind of looking for both what next, you know, how to make a difference in a world that is like that the world that I studied and became aware of, and what is the answer? Like what's behind this? So I was kind of looking for truth, you know, a truth seeker. And that's been my journey really, you know, understanding self, understanding the world, and then understanding God. You know, if I was to put it simply, understanding God and understanding that incredible part of all of us that is the transformation that the world needs to see. That is, you know, when we ignite that incredible energy that's creative, that's innovative, we all have a certain skill and a purpose in life, and it's when we line up and align ourselves with that and live that from that place that, you know, that the world will shift in the way that it's supposed to. So that is, yeah, that was kind of my point in my journey, where I was the most kind of torn and thinking, this isn't it, like there's something more, you know, and the inner peace that comes with that discovery and the ease and effortlessness in life once you kind of, you know, really able to tap into that is incredible. And I'm obviously still on that journey now, but I just, you know, I want that for everybody, because that's how we make the ultimate difference, right?
Yeah. And you know, like, so thank you so much for answering that, like, beautiful, Stephanie. Like, again, I don't write these questions or script them, they just come in and I ask them, right? But what's coming in is that, like, it's really nice and beautiful to hear wonderful stories of people doing incredible things on the planet. You're one of those people, no doubt about it, which we'll get onto more in a little bit. But what I also love as well is to go like under the bonnet a little bit. And again, this is not scripted. It comes when it comes and all the rest of that. But, you know, at times like this, because when people watching this, right, it's like, well, what can I take away, you know, because I'm not always on my path. I'm not always determined or, you know, have full awareness of what I'm doing. There's sometimes where I might have doubt, you know, and what I love to kind of see is that, you know, for some people maybe like yourself, like when they have doubt, when they have something going on, how do they overcome that doubt, or how do they learn to accept and deal with and use that doubt to find them, to rediscover their path again, right? So you said before about finding your flow and finding what makes you tick and your purpose and all of that. So then if I were to ask you, though, from those times of having maybe some doubts and some second guesses about what you're doing and being disillusioned, like how did you find your way back into a flow?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'm loving these questions. So good. I literally thought, I literally stopped my life and thought to myself, what brings me the biggest joy? Because my grandma passed away just towards the end of the masters, and I was very close to my grandma. In fact, I've got a photo of her right here.
Oh, show us.
She was Irish.
Beautiful.
And so Granny was an incredible, you know, pillar of strength in my life. And so she passed away, and I was really out of flow for the first time in my life. I was really kind of like, where is it? Where's that joy? I want that flow back. So I thought, you know, where do I get the most joy? So Ireland. I love Ireland, and my grandma's from Ireland, and I traveled there when I was 24, and I just had the time of my life with the people and the culture and the humor and, you know, the spirit. There's great spirit in that country. And so I just flew to Ireland, and I just thought, I'm just going to give myself the time and space to work it out and just do what makes me happy for a while. You know, I was working while I was over there and things, but so, you know, not everyone would be able to just jump on a plane to Ireland or to their favorite country, but I think it's about just touching base with who you are and what brings you joy. Tiny things, you know, if you like meeting people, just push yourselves to step out and meet some new people, or just make a conscious effort. And also I believe, you know, that we've all got the answers inside of us, and that we can all, you know, there's something greater than us that we can ask. And, you know, when you ask, you receive. Every time. That's been the story of my life. You know, I've always asked for help when I've just been like, what is this about, and what am I to do next? You know, working in a country like Nepal is very, very challenging. So there's been situations where it's like something put me on this path, and I'm here for a reason. Like, help me. I need help right now because I don't know what to do. So, you know, and it's always come, and the right people and the right opportunities at the right time. And I think also just having that philosophy in life that if you are going through a rough patch, it's for a reason, and life's preparing you for something that, you know, you're capable of overcoming. And there was a quote that my friend Stephen reminded me of, I think yesterday, you know, that nothing gets put in your way that you are not capable of overcoming. So that is, you know, it's almost like life is knocking you into shape for what you're meant to be in future. So I think if you have that sort of philosophy, it really helps, because, you know, I actually believe it's the truth, because when you look back on your life, you can connect the dots, and you're given all these skills and everything to then take you to the next evolution of who you're becoming.
Wow. And I resonate with that big time. You know, absolutely. I kind of knew that's why we're coming together. And by the way, thank you, Stephen Dossall, for bringing us together. Most appreciated. And I mean, so look, so now you're in a position where, you know, you're in tune with your life's purpose, and you're doing it, right? So you reach a point where you start to realize that I'm in service of others. That's what I'm hearing in what you're saying. And now it becomes something of like, perhaps, how can I impact the most people which I possibly can? So then from that perspective, so like, what allowed you to move on to the next stage, and what are you doing currently?
Yeah, so 7 Women, it was quite up and running before, you know, COVID happened, and it's the country's struggling a bit at the moment. But my that as a charity is, it's got a team over there that work in it. So I've had, it's a very interesting question, especially at this time, because the last kind of few days ago, actually, I had a phone call with someone who basically just really made a stand for me and said, what are you up to next? I've had this vision that I shared with him previously, and I've had it sitting there for about 4 years. It's a vision that's very close to my heart, and I just kind of wrote it all down and got really excited about it, and then put it aside and thought, I'll do that if the right time comes and if I'm showing the right people, and all these like ifs, because it's a bit scary, when you're kind of changing from one thing to the other. So yeah, he basically said to me, when I was asked to be an ambassador for this organisation that's a similar type of thing, and I said, maybe that's life showing me that I can collaborate and support something else like that instead of creating it from the ground up myself. And he said, or what else could life be telling you, about what else could it be? And I knew in that moment that it was, me to create that incredible vision that excited every cell in my body. That's the path forward for me. So I am stepping up to the plate now, even though it scares the hell out of me in a way, but I know that I'm looked after, because I have been all my life. And I know that when people choose their passion and they actually, when you do step out of your comfort zone, you will be caught by life 100%. I really believe that. And the more out of your comfort zone you are, the more support that you get. And that goes for everyone, not just me. I'm not more blessed than anyone else. It's just that, I remember thinking to myself in high school that confidence is the thing that I want to work on most, because I thought if someone's confident in life, they can be successful, but you've got to have that inner confidence. So I've always made it a habit to kind of put myself out of my comfort zone and grow in the process through doing that. So this is a time now where it's needed, and I know it is. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm about to create the next kind of evolution of 7 Women, but it's basically, I feel a really strong desire in this time and in the world to bring people together with a similar vision for creating a new earth, what we actually want to see, what is going to work for humans. And that can't be done alone, that needs to be done together with people that have that, similar vision and very clear on that vision. And it needs to be done by everybody really aligning with their purpose and what lights them up, and being that expression out into the world, and bringing them together and seeing how we can all work together by putting that together and bringing that to fruition, because obviously when you're living your passion, you are joyful and you're happy and you're feeling like you're fulfilling your function here in the world. And that ripples out energetically, not even the person feeling happy, but that obviously spreads positive energy, like the bloke that was shouting everyone petrol in their car. That sort of thing is contagious, and it gets passed on and ripples out far beyond you.
Wow. Loving this, Stephanie. Loving this. And something else popped in. So you mentioned God before. And so some people here might be thinking, because when you say something like that, people have got different maybe ideas or concepts in their mind what that means. So for you, when you mention God, what does that mean to you?
Okay. Well, I'm a believer myself, and I believe that, God is our saviour, and Jesus is our saviour. And I believe that, I've been reading the Bible only recently actually. I only picked it up 6 months ago and read a version that really jumped out at me from the pages. And the Bible is incredible, and it's like a guide to life, and I'm not talking about, I understand that there's a lot of different conditioning that people bring to religion, and also there's a lot of stuff that comes with religion that's real for people and that's happened in the past. I'm not talking about that, because I haven't experienced that myself. I've just literally felt called to reading the Bible and been, in an inquisitive, curious way, been really seeking to learn more about it, you know, and through reading the Bible, it's as if, you know, the words expand your mind and expand your being. It's an incredible book to read, and it's you know, I think not only, I'm not saying this from just, you know, my opinion, it's my lived experience. It's my experience in life that, you know, as you read and get to know, you know, I think we all have those questions in life, you know, what are we here for, and where did we come from, and, you know, what's it all about? And it's like all of those questions are answered in this one book. So you know, I'd love to say to anyone, if you have ever been curious about the Bible, like, just check it out. You know, even online, there's an app on the phone, but like, you know, you don't necessarily have to go to church initially or whatever. Just your own direct connection is very powerful, you know, and it might take time, but it does take time. And that for me has brought me incredible inner peace and clarity of mind, and just knowing, you know, an inner knowing and wisdom that we get from the words of the Bible. So I understand, you know, as I'm saying this, it might not resonate with everybody, but I'm not saying it as in, you know, from a religious perspective, like, you know, that you have to label yourself as something. No, I'm speaking as, you know, just be curious and check it out, because I think what you might find is it's an incredible, and it's not like, you know, it's not like the learning that you do when you kind of cram knowledge into your head. No, it's like there's a certain energy in the words, and if you really you know, follow the principles that are outlined in the Bible, your life will take on a whole nother level. And you know, we all have that incredible energy inside of us, and potential and innovation and creativity, and it's just all the you know, all the crap and all the conditioning and all the things that happen, and it's almost like we press that down, you know, and we press our life force down with all of that heaviness, when it's just made up, you know, and we've all got different lived experiences. But the more that we can kind of let go of that, shake it off, and realize that it's only something that happened that we've made mean something, and it's you know, limiting us, the better. And I think that we can kind of get to that with the help of asking for help.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. And this here is all about your perspective. So, you know, for some people it may resonate, for some people it won't, but you know, the way it is, it's a bit like we said before, it's a bit like a birthday party, right? It's like the people who come are the ones who are supposed to come. Those who don't, we don't worry about, right? And look, so giving you a little bit of a breath, right? Not for long, but a little bit of a breath. So guys, we're here at Tropical Nomad. Just want to thank Itchy and Bella so much, because they make all this possible. I'm facing like a whole bank of screens here. We're streaming on this, streaming on that, there's things on here. I've got no idea what's going on, but it looks good. And honestly, like, without their help, then this wouldn't happen. Now, for anyone else who's watching this, who's enjoying this, you know, like, so SpeakuP Monday, as I was saying to Stephanie before, the barriers to entry are not stiff, right? So basically, it's about you putting your hand up, because, you know, if there's something, like, we all have that little tap on the shoulder, right? And that tap on the shoulder, what I believe is like the universe tapping us on the shoulder, right? Saying, hey, do a speak up, right? And it could be you, or it could be you volunteering a friend. Both work just fine, right? So you can volunteer a friend, or you can volunteer yourself. Get in touch with me. Like, I'm sure you can find a way to get in touch with me, and we'll schedule you in. You know, like, this show is about, you know, it's about your perspective, it's about your worldview, right? It's not that you have to, you know, be limited in any way. We literally go wherever we go, wherever the energy takes us. And in that, there's always inspiration for other people, always, right? And that's really what this is really about. It's a platform for that. So if you're feeling drawn, feeling pulled, feeling a tap on the shoulder, going, hey, I think I want to do one of those, right? Do not be stopped by fear, right? Jump into it, take action, take massive action, and just hit me up, and we can get this rolling. Okay. Whew. Take a breath for me. All right. So now, Stephanie. So what's in your future now? So again, you've worked on all these things, you've worked on yourself, which we'll get back to in a second, but like you mentioned this project that is about to come up for you, which I know is going to be astonishing for you, but on a daily basis, you know, like what is your routine? So your immediate future, what is your routine? What do you do on a day-to-day basis to keep everything flowing, everything moving?
That's a really interesting question, and some people will probably be shocked by my answer, but every single day I just, I've got a few meetings and things that are planned to progress the project that I'm working on, but I also have a lot of time just to chill, but it gets filled in with just the random people that come into your life and opportunities and things like that. So I love to always have space for that, because I find that there's a lot of ad hoc things that happen that make every single day phenomenal. Like, just today, even, I've been thinking for the last couple of days, wow, I really need a graphic designer for this future project. And this morning, one said, she's willing to do all my graphic design for free, and she's a really good graphic designer. So, things like that. I think if you leave space for them, they can drop in. Also, just kind of referring back to I have actually dipped in to the Bible at various stages of my life. One when I was a teenager, and I couldn't quite understand it at that point. It was, very strange language, and the version that I picked up was kind of old language, and yeah, so it wasn't kind of accessible to me, but I've got a brilliant version that's, that I really understand now. And so every morning I have a session with Stephen Dosu, who we met through, who, I can just ask questions to him, like, what does this mean? And we kind of pick a random passage, and, it's incredible the relevance of some of the passages that we choose. There was a couple of days ago that I actually had a bit of a frustrating day. I was kind of had this really impatient energy, like this was before the phone call of what to do next. I was feeling like, we're in lockdown again for 6 weeks in Melbourne, and it's like, what am I supposed to be doing now? I feel like there's momentum building. I feel like it's, so just one of those days, a bit impatient, a bit frustrated at the slowness of how things were moving. And like bang, there was a passage that was like totally relevant to that situation, and it totally launched me forward. So so just that's basically my daily routine. I'm spending more time with the family and friends, and just going with the flow, as you sound like you do too, Rob. A lot of the time.
Yeah, I do. There's a couple of things which I like to do every morning, from meditating, exercise, not long actually for exercise, but exercise, meditation. And then right now I'm designing this online course, so I'm busy writing content and all the rest of that, but yeah, I think at my best, there's always moments where I let life flow, and we had on the show a few weeks ago a guy called Adrian Reed, great guy, and he lives his life in that way too. He lives his life in a state of flow, tries not to complicate things too much. And he lives that way, I've also met people who are very structured and very organized in their day, and they're very productive, and they feel like they're doing great things, So it's interesting because, it's not that we all have different ways, but it's kind of working out what works for us, and maybe what works with maybe at our time of life. For us with kids, maybe that's a little bit more tricky than not having kids, or so there's all different ways to kind of approach it, but definitely finding a way that works for you and that's effective, productive, and you feel happy, you feel fulfilled in what you're doing, I think is extremely powerful, because fulfilled energy then just expands and radiates out and creates all that energy that brings things to you, so I think that's extremely powerful. And look, so a few questions that drop in is, so you mentioned before that you kind of had a tricky day, the other day, I asked you before what you do to get back on track, and you gave us an answer for that. So has there been any collateral fallout from anything that you've done that comes into mind?
Collateral fallout, as in like big epic fails.
On that one, I didn't want to lead you. So whatever comes in your mind, collateral fallout.
All right, cool. I'd just love to say, to get back on track as well, I think, nature is something that I really try and spend time in every day, because I think if you engage all the senses and you're out appreciating nature, you become present, and that just totally clears your mind. And I think that's when we can also get messages and things like that of what to do next. So that's something that I always love to do every day, and that I think is really critical for people to do, especially in these times. I think, initially building 7 Women was quite challenging, but I didn't see them as massive challenges at the time, because I was so driven by the vision and the fact that I just wanted to raise enough money to help build these women a better place to live. But there were some really challenging times. Probably the biggest challenge was the ordering the initial products that the women were making, where they were, it was the cross-cultural communication, and I was trying to communicate with them on the telephone, but they had electricity cuts, so I couldn't kind of get to them. And I was trying to drum up the orders here in Australia and get the proper quality happening. And I wanted to make sure that I got the right orders, because I was trying to build business and build a reputation here as well, so they would keep ordering from the women and we'd be able to employ more women in Nepal. So actually to date, we have educated, trained and employed over 5,500 women in Nepal. Wow. So it's grown massively through the 4 different enterprises, but that probably took 4 or 5 years to actually build that manufacturing business to a point where it was sustainable and even generating proper money. So that's a long time to hang in there. But yeah, the biggest kind of the point where I kind of sat still in my garage, where I was unpacking the products that I just collected from the airport in the cargo, was when I'd ordered these hand puppets, for kindergartens and primary schools and whatever. And I don't know if you guys have seen, like people have seen a cockatoo bird. It's an Australian bird with a yellow crest. And I ordered these 200 of these hand puppets as part of it, Australiana bird set. And as I opened the box, a lot of material, a lot of expenses had been made in both, paying for it to come over to Australia and paying for it for the women's wages and the material. And I opened the box and there were 200 cockatoo hand puppets, and they were all missing their beaks. So they had no beaks. So they looked like, they didn't even look like cockatoos. But so at that point I thought, oh my goodness, there'd been a lot of faulty products that were coming, every cargo load, and lots of different challenges. And I just thought, how did they miss the beaks on the thing? But anyway, it turns out that I'd actually been to Nepal and made the hand puppets with the women, with the raw materials, put them together and made sample pieces. But because the cockatoo was a bit more complicated and I ran out of time and came back home, I took the materials home, made it here and sent a photo over to the women. And I realized that actually, of course the women had never seen a cockatoo before. They probably didn't even know it was a bird. So the photo was against a black background. So the beak was actually camouflaged, so they didn't see the beak. So they'd made the products perfectly, and I was just thinking, oh my goodness, so like a lot of lessons can be drawn from that, because I didn't even see that was an issue, because I knew what a cockatoo looked like. So that was super challenging. And I suppose when things like that happen, or when you're starting an idea and different challenges come, you have to be really resourceful. And at that point I thought, all right, how can we get this fixed? So it was, ring up my friend who's a grade 6 school teacher. She had actually been on a tour with me over to Nepal, and begged her to make it a class project for her grade 6 students to make the beaks to put on the cockatoos that then we could sell. So yeah, a lot of different challenges like that I had no skills in. I was not experienced in running businesses. I'd never done that before. So every step of the way was new learning for me. And, I think that's the most powerful learning sometimes. So if, you know, if people have never had a business before and they're thinking of a new idea, it's just throw yourself into it and you work it out as you go. That's what everyone does basically, and it works in your favor because you get more help that way.
I love that. And I mean, you know, the fact that you're, you know, that's incredibly resourceful, right? To figure it out on the spot, you know, to make, what is it, lemonade out of lemons or something, right? That's just awesome. I love it. And like, I mean, again, so right now with what's happening in the world, I think that's probably one of the superpowers, right? To be resourceful, to work out, you know, I've got this and I'm in a different situation. I don't really know what I'm doing. How can I fix it? How can I make the most of it? And who can I call? Who can I bring in? Who can I collaborate with to help me to create something, right? Which can basically, you know, push up the initial thing that I was faced with to something which can then still satisfy the demand of what it was supposed to in the beginning. And on that note, I had a little thought come in. I should put you together with Matilda. So Matilda Drilastati is one of the women I was talking to you about, who was on the show twice before. So she's one of the 2 women team, the first Indonesian women to climb the highest mountain on 7 continents, including Everest, because she's pretty close to Nepal. Her heart is really close to Nepal, and she is all about empowering women. Both of them are. So putting you together, I think, could be really interesting because, you know, you're obviously doing something really great in Nepal, and I know that it's very close to her heart, and having climbed Everest. So I'm definitely going to put you guys in touch. Who knows what's going to happen? But what it sounds like to me, you've got the collaboration, you've got the resourcefulness going on. I'm sure there's going to be something that will come out of it or come of it, right? Which is great. So what popped in? So you were working with the UN. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
That was actually when I got home from Sweden. So I think this is another really, I just think it's a pretty magical story. I got back from Sweden and I was in that kind of disillusioned, burnt out state, and I thought, you know, what's next for me? And I actually began to think maybe I should get a corporate job, you know, a normal job that's just 9 till 5. I'll have work colleagues at my same level. I could make some friends and learn new skills. I thought maybe that I had a few gaps in my knowledge or experience because I'd never worked really for anyone else. I'd always just worked for myself because I met the women quite young, you know. So I started to think maybe, you know, maybe I should get a real job. And so that was, looking back now, I see that I was actually deviating from my path, you know, from my purpose, because I was at a bit of a low ebb and I was kind of considering different things, and I was putting it out there and I had a few things come through, but nothing really. It was like, you know, sometimes when you just, you know, you're looking for an open door but they're all closed, and then so it was an amazing thing. And then I thought, I did have a few opportunities, and I thought I don't want to jump into consulting because I don't even know really what that means, to be a management consultant. So I'd love to understand. Anyway, long story short, I thought maybe I could ask 4 different firms, 4 different corporates, if I could follow their executives around for a week just to get to know more about what it is, you know. And I knew it was a bit of a bold request. I mean, I didn't even know if it was a thing, you know, could I shadow you for a week? But 4 of them said yes. So I spent 4 different weeks in 4 different businesses. 2 were kind of, you know, medium size, and 2 were quite large. And I learned so much from that experience. But what was really empowering for me was I recognized that I actually had the skills through doing my own thing. I just didn't have the same terminology. Like they didn't necessarily use the same words for it. So I knew what they were doing, and you know, those experiences were super interesting because I learned so much about how the different businesses worked. But also, you know, in one of them, I was kind of thinking, oh my goodness, these people are moving so slowly, like in this job. Like I couldn't believe that some people get paid, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're going full throttle the whole time, you know, because it's your business and you're building and you're making the most of every opportunity. Yeah, not necessarily like that. And so lots of learnings there. And to to answer your question, during this time where I was exploring something that I kind of see as like off my path, I started to get all of these massive awards, like international awards that literally picked me up and put me back on the path. Bang, like, because all of these speaking engagements came out of the awards, like in a lot of different countries. So the first one was at the United Nations in 2016 for responsible business. So I literally like got this award. It came from nowhere. I mean, it came from people that nominated me, but I didn't know that they were nominating me. And I had, you know, a spare ticket to bring someone with me. And my mum has always dreamed of going to New York. So it was like the best gift ever that I could give to my mum. We had a great time over in New York. Like went to Broadway shows every night. And Mum was like, you know, in tears when I said to her on the phone, Mum, just won this award at the United Nations. Do you want to come with me? I've got a spare ticket. And she said, oh my God, I can't feel my legs. I thought she was going to collapse. So I called her when I was actually in Nepal on one of the last days, and I said to her, yeah. So anyway, so we won an award at the United Nations. So we went over there to collect that, and then one after another, like Bahrain of all places. Never ever imagined going to Bahrain. So I flew to Bahrain, had this incredible like experience meeting all the you know, the governor and this person, just seeing how that country works and the culture, and then, you know, India, and then Estonia, you know, the countries that I've never imagined visiting. So that led to a lot of speaking engagements all over the world. And just referring to the question that you asked me about, you know, I was still kind of in that phase, and I was being asked to speak at a lot of these conferences, and one was in Canada, in Edmonton, and I'd been kind of flying around a lot that year from one country to another, and I had this weekend speech in Edmonton, so literally flying from Australia to Canada for a day to talk and then back home. And I was quite tired at that point, and I thought, oh my goodness, why did I say yes to this event? And so I went anyway because I'd given my word, and it was like I was so knackered, like meaning exhausted at that time. I went anyway, and I just had the most amazing experience at that conference. I met a woman who led me to the most amazing experience of my lifetime, which was a seminar in the Bahamas that I went to, you know, a few months later. So I was, you know, you can imagine me sitting in the audience quite exhausted, and I saw this woman on stage who was beaming like a beacon of light. She was like, her energy was like incredible. And I thought, oh my God, she was Irish too, which helped because I love Irish people. And she mentioned that she'd actually, her name's Susan Morris, she had actually discovered oil in Belize when 50 oil companies for, you know, half a century had been drilling for oil, unable to find it. And she met a young bloke in Belize who told her that he'd had a dream since he was young that there was oil and that it was supposed to be drilled up by the right people to benefit the country and communities. I'll send you a link to her article. It's phenomenal. So he told her this story, and she backed him, you know, and she said, I believe you. Let's see. She said, my friends have been telling me about this seminar for, you know, ages. Let's do this seminar that's all about understanding the mind, you know, the unconscious, and tapping into intuition, and, you know, and getting that guidance and following it, basically. So she did the seminar, and yeah, after that, they literally had one chance, because, you know, drilling for oil is super expensive as an exercise. They had one chance to find like a dinner plate size, you know, spot in Belize, in the whole of Belize, to drill down. So they did it, and they hit oil on the first drill, and it's the purest oil in the world. They don't need any refining, nothing. And they hit 2 more holes and got, you know, oil in them too. So just like, you can't make that stuff up, you know. It's such like absolute miracle, and it transformed the country at a time where it was going into bankruptcy. So anyway, that's Susan's story, and she's an incredible woman. And she mentioned that she'd done, you know, just briefly this seminar in the Bahamas. So I was just like, my gut feeling was like, I'm doing that seminar. So I did the seminar, and that for me was what put me back on track, massive, big time, more than Ireland. You know, Ireland was great, it was this experience. So the reason I'm sharing that is because I think sometimes in life, when you're just at your lowest, like it just can transform in a second, you know. It's just, you know, take that as a time to reflect and really, you know, think about what you want or where you're going next, or just take it as a time that will pass, you know, because in the next moment it can shift big time. So I've been in and that's really what I think changed things for me when I picked up the Bible and read that. I kind of got it on another level, because the seminar was literally 10 days of taking you through steps, very simple basic steps, like go for a walk in nature and engage all of your senses. You know, what can you see? Only focus on what can you see for 30 seconds. What can you hear? What can you feel? So it takes you through those steps to understand the mind, become present. You can literally feel the energy from the plants and from nature in your body. You feel a oneness with everything around you. And that's just from simple steps, you know, clearing the mind, that you know, you become present and you actually experience the world in a whole different way. And then, you know, the middle part of the seminar is about visioning what you want, what your goals are, and actually understanding how to land that on the unconscious, or using your whole mind to bring that about, you know, and bypassing the doubts, the limitations, the fear, the worries, all that sort of thing. And then the end of it is basically just it connects you with that part in ourselves that is that energy and life force that puts us into flow, you know, and that there's something greater than us, you know, that we can draw upon, and it's within us. So that was, you know, I think being an experiential seminar as well, once you have the experience, you can't go back. It's not like you're sitting there and you're just hearing some theory. You're actually experiencing it for yourself. So phenomenal experience. Yeah.
Love it. And I mean, you know, time and time again, you know, I was going to ask you, when you're at that low ebb, you know, what kept you going? But from what it sounds like, as you just said, you know, you answered the question without even knowing I was going to ask it. You know, was that, you literally take that time to reflect, take that time to have a look at what's going on, realize that it will pass, and this too shall pass. It won't always be like that.
I love that. I love that quote.
Such a powerful quote. One of my favorite quotes, along with probably my favorite quote, which is a whole nother question I'm going to ask you. My favorite quote is the line from Goethe on commitment, which is, you know, the moment one truly commits oneself, then providence moves too. I love that line, right? And I didn't even know what providence meant. I thought it was a place in New England, right? In America. But then providence, I still did. It's only last week I found out it was something else. No, but providence, it means that then God moves too. God meaning the universe conspires to support you along the journey. And that's really what sums up your journey, right? I could talk to you forever, and we haven't got forever, but I could talk to you forever. So for those of you who may have questions, right, feel free to quickly put those questions maybe into the comments, and maybe we can dig some of those questions out and answer some. That's if there are some. If there are none, that's okay too. I'm sure I've got a couple more. So yeah, please do that. Also, let me remind you that every Monday we do this, right? So feel free to share this, right? Because every Monday we have different people, but it's all connected because, you know, it's incredible messages, right? Like Stephanie, you're a gift. You've given us some incredible messages, which, you know, different people would take what they need to take, you know? And again, it's not by any coincidence that we're all sitting here. If you're watching this live, or whether you're going to watch this on replay, like, there's no coincidence here, right? There's something in there for you to get. And if you feel that, you know, I would love to share this with other people, feel free to share it, guys, yeah? Because the more people share it with, the more people it affects. The more people it affects, the more positive messages, impacts, you know, waves of positivity get shared throughout. We're now in Bali. Stephanie's in Australia, you know, in you know, Melbourne, not Sydney. I keep saying Sydney, right? So all of this gets shared, and it's really powerful because it takes one thing, you know, one insight to change your life. Only one insight to change your life. And it might be that you get that insight from watching this or something like it or something else. Now, on that note, we had a chat before, Steph. So you were saying that you just started something, right, on Facebook. I think you were saying about random acts of. So please tell us a little bit more about that, 'cause I think it's fantastic.
Oh, the inspiring conversations or the.
Yeah.
Oh, so okay, cool. Yeah. So that was just I think just relating to your question before, what do you do every day? If I think sometimes we can have like just ideas that come to us, very simple ideas that inspire us. So, you know, those ideas, and that more come when you're kind of present or in nature or whatever. And one of those ideas, you know, at the beginning of this period of time, I was kind of thinking, what can I do? You know, we're all at home, and what can I do to kind of at this period of time to cheer others up or whatever. And I just got an idea to do just very basic idea, inspiring conversations on Facebook. So all of these people came into my mind that inspired me and that have inspired me in my life and my journey, and just ordinary people, you know, that do amazing things that light others up, you know, and that see the best in others. So just doing a few Facebook Lives, inspiring conversation series. And you know, I mean, I did one with Susan actually on my Facebook, and I think that's had like 3,200 views or something, you know, just from Facebook, you know, like, so that shows how simple it is for us to take action when we get those ideas that drop in. Take action on them immediately, because they've dropped into your brain for a reason, you know. And just, you know, the faster you act on them, the less time there is to kind of think, oh, can I do it, or should I do it? Or so those ideas are coming to us individually for a reason, and they need to be acted on immediately. So yeah, so that's what I've been doing during this time. And yeah, I've loved it, you know. And those actions can lead to then new ideas and co-creations and new initiatives and things like that. So it might just be the first step, life showing you just a tiny small step to do that's leading to something bigger as well. But yeah, I want to say I love the quote before, because it speaks to belief as well, you know. Committing yourself to something. I mean, if you commit yourself to something, you've got to believe that it's going to come about, and that belief, I think, you know, it's referred to believe without a doubt, and it will come about. Belief is so powerful, you know, to have faith that it will come, and to have faith that you're you know, you're being looked after as well. And I think it was Buddha that said, you know, one flame can light the candle of many others. And the seminar I did, which is called EDUCO, EDUCO, Dr. Tony Quinn runs that seminar, and he said, you know, he added, you know, the flame can light the one flame can light the flame of many candles, I think, something along those lines. And he added, but first of all, you have to have the flame, you know, you have to light the flame, the inner flame. So I think, you know, to reflect on my journey, it's been, you know, being a young person, desperate to make a difference and find my place in the world. It was all about learning about the world, you know, and then it was learning about self, you know, who am I and what's the best way to make a difference. And yeah, and now it's about learning about, you know, the real purpose of life. What are we here for? You know, I think this time in the world is causing us to all ask ourselves that question. You know, who are we? What are we here for? What's it all about? And, you know, I firmly believe that when people take that time to actually tap into that inner creativity and life force and energy, that, you know, and really courageously step into their truths and begin to become an expression of that, that's what will get that, you know, shift that we're all looking for.
And look, on that note, so what is it for you? So you mentioned before about purpose and getting clear upon that and who you are, what life is about. So succinctly, what is that for you as we speak?
Oh, my answers have been too long.
No, they're not. No. Because what you have to understand, right? So you're a bit like me. So you answer the question that I asked. Like, you answer it in the next question, because you go back to it and say, I forgot something. And I get it, because I get it, right? I do the same thing. Because I'm on, and then something pops in, and I'm like, wow, yeah. And then I start answering the next question with the end of the answer from the last question. So it's all good. And like what I love about you is you got such great stories, right? So like it's never boring. It's always insightful. No pressure. Always insightful. And like where like the energy is going there. So I don't interrupt with the energy. So no interview that I do is the same, right? Because I don't run off a template. I run off the energy of what's present between us, between you and I. When it was Adrian Reed the other week, it was between me and Adrian. When it's going to be Mark next week, if he's going to do next week, it's going to be me and Mark, right? Or it's me and Stephen, or whoever it is. So that's why no two, call them interviews, but Q&A, whatever you want to call it, no two will ever be the same, and I love that, right? So everyone is unique in its own right, which I love.
Yeah.
So now I've given you enough time to think of the answer. Come on, Steph. Bring it back.
So, yeah, that's what happens when you ask interesting questions. I think for me, it's about stepping up into, leading the change, being the change that we want to see in the world. And for me, it's about drawing out the human potential in others, by bringing people together, starting with oneself, bringing out the human potential in oneself, leading from that place and uniting others. Because I think when you, as I said before, like you have the clear vision and your intention is very clean and pure, that energy of people coming together multiplies, multiplies. So that's the vision. And I think, my purpose as a human is to just take big action on the ideas that come to me. And they're always about the greater good. And they're always about, the future. How can we draw the best out in everybody?
Wow. Far out. You know what I'm going to say next, right? You should write a book. and it just so happens that I have a course called Turn Your Story into a Book.
Sign me up.
All right. I'm trying to find. So now the title of your talk tonight was about the future of leadership, right? And social capitalism. Well, not, you use a different word. It wasn't social capitalism, social commerce. So if we could, or if you could kind of sum that up, even though we've spoken about it indirectly for the whole time. So if someone asked you, what is the future of leadership from that perspective, what or how would you answer, or what would you say?
So social enterprise, is that what you mean? Social enterprise. Yeah, well, I think, enterprises and businesses are founded by people. So they need to be in full alignment with that person's passion and purpose. And I think, that is the vehicle on which we ride to be that expression of our, function in the world and our creativity. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but, that's how I see the future, people creating enterprises, businesses, initiatives, co-creating with each other and just bringing epic stuff into the world. But it needs to have a bigger vision for not only the business owner, but for the greater good for the world. And I can say with, my lived experience and my belief is, if it is for the greater good, you will get help like you never believed. Like I wasn't paid for the first 11 years in 7 Women. I was doing odd jobs and, I had money coming at me from all directions. I did not even have to worry about money once. I had a guy who said after the earthquake happened, when I just started my tour company, because that's what was going to be my business that I'd earn money from, and then the charity I would continue volunteering with. I had 15 tours locked in, and then the earthquake happened in Nepal, and I went into full-on, relief mode with the charity. And we had a big fundraiser, and he came up to me at the end of the fundraiser and said, with his wife, what are you doing now for a wage? And I said, well, I'm not sure. I might have to get a job or something like that. And he said, we want to put you on our books for 2 years, no strings attached, just to keep doing what you're doing. So I got paid a full wage for 2 years for just doing what I was doing. It was amazing. And that allowed me to actually write a book. So I wrote a book, and we did a documentary about the work of 7 women that's been screened all over the world. So that would not have been possible if that didn't happen, you know. So that's just an example, and there's so many of those examples on my journey. It's unbelievable. So I think, you know, if your vision excites every cell in your body, and it's for the greater good, you're on the right track.
Wow, Mamma mia. Ooh. When one truly commits oneself, then providence moves too. And providence has moved very much for you, darling. Far out. How amazing is that? Wow. Are you proud of yourself?
Am I proud of myself? Yeah, I'm proud of myself, and I wouldn't say it that way, but I'm just amazed every day by the magic of life. You know, I live an inspired life. I'm inspired by life. I'm inspired by all the opportunities and people that come in my path, and it just, you know, it's happening on the daily, and it's because, you know, of the belief, as you said, in the faith, and you know, in the mind. I think, you know, the mind and our thinking to be able to control the mind and control our thoughts to work for us. I think that's a critical part as well.
All right, guys. So now I'm not sure if we have any questions. Itchy, thanks, brother. We'll have a quick look. But like, what we do? We'll have a look. Your mum, right? Because I love mums. Mums are, you know, just having kids now. I can see that my partner Marina, how much she does, right? And how much kids, you know, love mum. You know, it's powerful. So your mum, like, how does she sit with all of this, all that's been happening to you? Has she ever worried about you? Does she have any what do you talk about? You know, like, do you talk about the stuff? Do you talk every day? Like what do you do? What's your relationship like now?
Yeah, she's been an incredible role model, because she has not lived by the rule book if the rules don't make sense. So, you know, being a naturopath, that's not a common, you know, I've seen as I've grown up, people challenge her on her beliefs, but have a different lived experience. Like the natural medicine, I'm so grateful for, because we've all been healthy and strong, you know, in life. So I think she has walked a challenging path, you could say, you know, in society, because she's been challenged in many ways, but she's always stayed true to herself and true to her beliefs. So, you know, a very strong woman in that respect. So an amazing role model, and yeah, she's a lot of fun too. So she has, you know, life is fun for her. And she used to say to me as I left the house, what was it again? Life is a stage and you're the main protagonist. Wow. So, you know, life is a stage, and we're creating it. So, but yeah, amazing mum, who has taught me that, you know, just because everyone believes something is true doesn't mean it's true. Always stick to your gut. Always stick to your truth. And
look, so thank you, darling. Thank you for that. And again, you know, mums, I get a whole different connection now. So look, a few questions. So from Gideon, thanks for sending them in, mate. So have you thought of applying the seven women models for farming, for the farming community?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, we've just hired a guy in Nepal who has a background in organic farming. So we're looking for land at the moment in Nepal where we can grow vegetables, because during this time in the city, Kathmandu, a lot of people are reliant on the shops instead of in the villages where they're reliant on the land. So our plan is to teach people how to do organic farming in the city as well for themselves. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think, you know, a lot of us here in Australia are thinking similar things, and around the world, how can we be more sustainable and more reliant on ourselves rather than buying everything all the time, you know? So we've got our little veggie patch out here. Sorry, it's not a veggie patch, it's a herb garden.
Love it. And look, so one question from Mike is, can you share the version that you read and then Stephen answered the New King James Version, correct? The Bible.
Oh, good question. Well, I know that Stephen's is, and my version, I've got one version that is that one, and yeah, another version that is, I'm not sure of the name actually. It's the Bible Society, it's called, CEV.
CEV,
Yeah.
great. And so for Gideon, we are recording this, and the Facebook Live will be here. It will also be on YouTube. So that's one. Gideon's saying he's got the land. He's got 300 hectares ready for the New Earth project in northern Bali. Right?
Wow, nice.
Right?
Oh, actually, I think I know Gideon.
Yeah, you would.
I think.
Yeah. Gideon is a tremendous fella.
Made the connection.
He's an amazing guy, really. So just looking through here, any more questions coming in? Ludmilla, yep, you got that. Increase the volume, we've done that. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to ask you in a second, Stephanie, is like your closing, like, I wouldn't call it words of wisdom, but whatever comes up for you now to share as a closing comment, okay? But I'm going to give you a minute to think of what that looks like. And in the meantime, I'm going to say a couple of words to everybody else, so you've got a little bit of time up your sleeve to think on what it might be. So as we draw to a close, we're not finished yet. We've got one little last word from Stephanie. I just want to thank every one of you for coming on today. I know we had a few technical challenges in the beginning, but like the guys here at Tropical Nomad, awesome, Itchy and Bella, incredible people. If you're in Bali, Tropical Nomad is a place where I always come to work. It's like, you mentioned nature before. It's got this whole interplay with nature going on, with indoor, outdoor. I love it. It's a feeling of space, equanimity, connection with nature. So if you haven't checked out, Tropical Nomad Bali, come and check it out, people. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that remember, sharing is caring. So if there's something here that's resonated with you, it's going to be on Facebook. This group, you can share it from here to wherever you want to share it to. And we'll put it on YouTube, and I'll share what that link will be at some stage. So remember that. And if you too want to do a Speak Up Monday, you're feeling a pull, urge to do it, maybe you have something important that you feel like sharing, okay? This does not happen by accident, whether you are watching it live or whether you're watching a replay. Now, feel free to reach out, okay? I'm all about courage. So confidence is great, but confidence, I find, with a lot of people comes from doing something repetitively. So they get confident at doing it. If they're asked to do something outside of their comfort zone, then confidence doesn't necessarily help you, but courage does, because courage is something which is hardwired within all of us. We all have it, and it takes 1 or 2 seconds of courage, right? It's like when you make a decision, when you really, go back to, what made that decision happen, you'll find that it happened in 1 or 2 seconds, no more than that. When you made the conscious decision in your mind, I'm doing this. And the next thing you did, you made an action, and that was done. After that, it was just you following through on your action, right? So have courage. We all have it, right? But it sometimes takes something like this for that to be uncovered for all of us, right? So however you get the courage, you got it hardwired. You might find it in your faith, in your religion, in what you follow, or you might find it within you, right? However you find it, if you're feeling that pull to do a Speak Up Monday, reach out to me. You'll be so happy that you did. The last thing I'm going to say is that, see, when you do things like this, so we've done now number 63. So what I've found is that for all the interviews which I've done, either on this platform or the hundreds before this, there's a thing that happens, right? And it's like, if you're used to being interviewed, you've got this whole repartee, you know what to say. It's the same type of questions. Because we don't follow any questions here, we follow the energy of what comes up. Invariably, something will happen. A question will come up that maybe you haven't thought about for a while, or maybe it's a question that you've never had before. And it causes you to think. And it causes you to get outside of that comfort zone. And you're there thinking like, damn, what is this? Now, what happens is that when you're being interviewed, it may feel a little bit awkward at the time, but it's not, because it's a friendly environment, right? But part of you might feel it's a little bit awkward, but what happens is that it opens a doorway in your mind. And promise you, it's the last thing I'll say. It's like a clock, right? So you've got 1 to 12. So numbers 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 is the stuff that we know that we know. We know our name, we know where we're from, we know where we live, we know how to drive home. We know the stuff. And then say from 3 to 5 are the things that we know we don't know. So for example, I know that I don't know how rockets go to outer space. I've got an idea, but I don't know how it actually works. So I know that I don't know it. And then from 5 all the way through to 12 are things that I don't know that I don't even know. And this is the place where transformation, for me, occurs. It's like you get put into a spot and it's like, damn, you see something for the first time. It's beneath your basal metabolic way of thinking, right? And this is what happens when that door opens up for you, when a question that's maybe asked that you haven't thought about before or whatever it might be, over the next few days, it's like a doorway appears and you have an opportunity to go through it and learn something completely new about yourself or be reminded of that, okay? And this is the power of SpeakuP Monday. So it's symbiotic. So the audience gets something really powerful, insights that can change their life, but also the person being interviewed also gets something really powerful as well, because there's questions that come up, because the questions aren't coming from me. The questions come up and it causes you to kind of think about something else that's important for you that maybe you haven't seen or you haven't paid attention to for a while, and that has incredible positive effects on you and your life for the next days to come. So that's a little bit of an insight which I love to share. So having said all of that, Stephanie's had enough time to think about a closing comment. So guys, after Stephanie makes a comment, we're going to close the stream and we're going to see you next Monday for the next guest, which should be Mark Seaton, right? Love that guy. Incredible, incredible story for him to share. Would love you to tune into him. He's an incredible guy. I love him very much. So that's next week. So now, take a breath. So Sister Stephanie.
Pressure. Yeah, I think I'd love to just make it about courage, as you said, because I think, I don't think you have to spend too long trying to find courage. I think it's a commitment, as you said, in a second, that you can just go, I'm gonna follow my heart. I think that's the advice I'd give. Just, follow your heart, follow your highest joy and excitement, with no expectation of the outcome. Just follow that, and it will lead you to incredible places and on incredible adventures.
Thank you, darling. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So welcome. Thank you, honey. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.